Shalom. This is your host, Pastor Enoch Phiri. Welcome to The Journey, a show where we profile prominent members of our society who have made it to the top against all odds. Today, in the studio, we have Zane Meas. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Pastor Enoch. Thank you for having me.
It's really a blessing having you here. I've been watching you from childhood, and I'm so much honored having you on our show today.
Thank you. I'm not that old, but thank you very much.
So, where did this great journey started?
Well, God's grace, I would say. When I look back on my life, Pastor Enoch, I must tell you, I can see how God has moved me like a chess piece, strategically placing me and putting me in certain situations and letting me meet certain people and allowing me to meet Him on the road to get to a point where I can give all glory to His name and to put me in a place of prominence, as an actor in this country, where then He could use me to bring across a very important message to the nation. I've always encountered that there are certain areas and times in my life where I thought certain opportunities should have been afforded to me, And I'm sure we all feel like that at some point. Certain doors must be open. You want God, I deserve that. And then God says, no, go that way. But I don't want to go that way, Lord. I want to go this way. And then, thank goodness, I was dumb enough.
Wow.
Because that's an important thing. I was dumb enough to listen to the voice of God. Because sometimes we get too intelligent in what we know and who we are and where we studied and how much degrees we have behind us and which theological college we went to, that we don't listen to the voice of God anymore. Thank goodness, thank God that I was dumb enough to listen to His voice. And I looking back now, I can see how I was moved and positioned and pulled back and stepped forward to bring glory to God. So,
wonderful. Tell us about your childhood.
Well, I grew up in Johannesburg. Lots of people think I'm from Cape Town because I do so much work in Cape Town. I've always played Cape Town characters and so on. But I'm born in Joburg, in Baragwanath Hospital.
Okay.
I grew up in Noordgesig, just very right next to Orlando. There's a place called Noordgesig. As you come into Soweto, the first place you get to is Noordgesig. Grew up there for the first 5 years and then moved to Riverlea, here in Crown Mines. And then went to Riverlea High School, studied at Wits University. And
you studied drama?
I did a BA in drama at Wits University.
Where did you do your primary school?
Also in Riverlea at TC Esterhazen Primary School. Very, very proud school for us to be involved there. And so I've been, all my life, I've really been a Joburg guy. But lots of people always think that, colored people come from Cape Town only. Absolutely. Which is fine. So and also the work that I do, and I do lots of work in Cape Town. So Joburg has always been my base, and I come from a big family. 7 children.
Wow.
And I'm the youngest, and I'm the only boy.
Okay.
Everyone can now say shame, just say shame, because I got 6 older sisters, and I love them dearly. And we were 10 people in a 2-bedroom house in Noordgesig, outside Soweto. So I know hardships. I know we had to sleep in shifts, for example. I'm just kidding. But we had a great life, man. Back then, our parents made sure that we always had food on the table every night. We weren't rich. We didn't know the definition of rich and poor.
Absolutely.
And very many children don't. But they do know if they miss the love of parents and input. That's important. So my childhood was probably the best period of my life, I would say.
Are you coming from a Christian background?
My father was Anglican, my mother was Catholic.
Okay.
And we went to a Catholic church on a Sunday. My father would go to Anglican and the rest of us would go to the Catholic church until I got to about the age of 20 at varsity, when I gave my heart to the Lord. And then I gave my heart to the Lord 3 times.
Okay.
That's really amazing. Yeah, just to be sure, you know what I mean? But I did that, and so I grew up in a Christian background, yes. And my father was very strict about us going to church. He was very strict about us. He drank a bit.
Okay.
But there are certain standards and certain things in our family that we learned, like manners and going to church and being God-fearing. And having good education that they instilled in us, which I find is lacking in parenthood today. With this modern technology today, kids get away with so much. But that's the basis of how I was formed. Really, was in my home.
Okay.
And that's why I do what I do today. with my Fatherhood Foundation.
So you'll be able to say that your Christian influence come from the tender age.
Yes, I believe the Bible says, train a child when he's young, so that he will not stray from that path when he's big. I firmly believe that. I don't believe in the new age or secular vision where parents say, no, let children find their own faith. I think you've got to show them a path. If they want to walk off that path a little later, it's their choice. But you have to start them on something. You can't just have a blank slate and assume they're going to find the path. You've got to give them something to work off of. And my parents were very good at that.
Okay.
You know, they made sure that we were God-fearing and we understood that there was a God. And you know, my parents, they set such a good example for us, Pastor. I remember my father used to come home, he used to get paid weekly.
Okay.
Very weekly, like actors today get paid very weekly. But he'd come home with that brown paper pack every Friday, and him and my mother would sit there at the table and they'd take the money out because he got paid in cash. And on the brown paper was how many hours he worked and everything on that envelope. And then they would work out what would go where and who would get paid what. And you know, got to pay the butcher, and then we got to pay water and lights. And that's also where we learned to understand financial responsibility. Absolutely. It was just from watching them at that table. We weren't allowed to come close, of course. You know, everybody wanted, like, can I have the coins because I want to go buy something. But just watching them do that as a couple, that was just an example set there, right there in stone.
Absolutely.
You know,
that was like a special class.
Yes.
Where you learn and observe two parents available in the house raising children together.
Exactly. They didn't have to teach us that. They didn't have to say, now do it like this. They simply personified it. They did it. They were an example. They were role models to us right there.
Wow.
Without speaking it, they were just it, you know. And still today, I make sure my family, we don't eat in front of the TV. Wow. We don't sit in front of the TV and have supper. We eat around the table. At least 3 times a night. We make sure we sit at the table and we chat to each other and we speak. Because that's how we grew up, you know. Powerful. Where you learn that your connection with your family happens around that dinner table. How was your day at school? How was your day at work? What happened here? What are we doing tomorrow? And so on and so on. Because we can live in this modern technological age of today. We live in, you know, this one's on his phone, that one's on his iPad, that one's watching 50 channels on TV. We live past each other.
Wow.
I make sure that our family connects in some way, having learned from my family to do that.
Powerful.
Yeah.
I'm in conversation with Zane, talking about his journey. We're going to take a music break, and when we come back, more about the life and the journey of Zane. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The Bible says in Jeremiah 29 verse 11 that I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. And today I'm in conversation with Zane, talking about his journey. Zane, tell us about your high school and university.
Well, like I said, my childhood and those early formative years was probably some of my best years.
Absolutely.
I remember them fondly. We didn't have television back then. We didn't have all this the stuff. So we had friends and we had family who came to visit every Sunday, and so you know, those are memories that I hold very dear. My high school was probably also great friends, great teachers. We had teachers back in the day. You know, we had discipline back then. We understood discipline. We understood being involved in a sport was important because teachers instilled that in us.
What sport did you do?
I did everything. Okay. I did athletics.
Okay.
I did rugby. I did cricket. I did hockey.
Okay.
I played soccer up until about the age of 12, and then I moved into the sports that my father loved to play, which was rugby and cricket. And then so I did those ones. But I was involved in the high school athletics team. I was involved in the high school rugby, hockey, and cricket. In fact, I played Transvaal provincial in all the codes. Wow. And I became also a provincial referee in hockey.
Okay.
So sport was very much part of my life, you know, and I would have been, I think, a sportsman if there was professional sports back then.
Okay.
And there were opportunities for us, like there is today. I think I could quite easily have been a sportsman of one of the codes. Then in my Standard 9 or grade 11 as it's called now, we did a school play, we did a school production, a variety show.
Okay.
And we had a teacher that took great interest in the work that I did as an actor. And she said, this is something you should consider doing. And so in my matric year, she did a play by a local playwright in Rivoli called Chris van Wyk, the famous Chris van Wyk, poet and writer. He wrote the many great poems, including the one that says he fell from the 9th floor. And he also wrote the Nelson Mandela book for Long Walk to Freedom for kids. He translated that for children. So Chris had a play called Flats, about people living in flats in Rivoli. And so he adapted that short story into a play, which I performed in. And then one of the lecturers from Wits Drama School came to watch it and also said to me, if you want to study drama next year, I think you've got talent for it, you know.
Wow.
Now, this is something I always tell parents. I always tell parents, never ever let someone else come and tell you about your child's talent. Just like Samuel had to anoint David. You know, Jesse thought all of these boys, his other sons, Eliadab and all of those guys, they were the guys that could be king. And he said, no, I want someone else. Is there someone else? And he said, David. And so Jesse was surprised that Samuel had to recognize David as king. And you know, my teachers were the same. And I always tell parents this.
Wow.
Don't let someone else come and tell you your child has got a talent.
Did your parents see that a passion for acting? Or
I don't think talent? So. No. They, you know, my father, I get it from my dad because he used to entertain people all the time.
Okay.
We always had people staying over at our house. In fact, I think we slept more on the floor than we did in our own beds. He always had people staying over, entertaining people, and he would tell stories. I'd sit at his feet and hear him tell jokes, and if he was going to tell a risque joke, he'd tell me to go out, you know. Go out, you can't hear this joke. So I think I get it from him. I get that acting talent from him. So I'm not surprised that I went into this field. But I don't think they recognized it. In fact, when I went to study, I was the first in my family to go to university.
Wow, praise God.
And only one of 5 children in our school that year to go to varsity. We had 5 exemptions, I think, around about there. It was a low number. So everyone said, oh, lawyer, you know, or something fancy. And I went and wrote drama. So when I came home and I said, I want to do drama, they kind of went, what is that? You know, drama. Back then there were 2 TV channels, SABC 1 and 2. That was it. There was no DST, there were no soapies. There was nothing, so there wasn't scope for TV, but I wanted to be a stage actor. And that's where I cut my teeth on stage.
Wow.
Stage is where I wanted to be because I loved the immediacy of working with the audience, you know. And then I got into drama school and I studied BA drama at Wits. And then another fortuitous thing, in my 3rd year of varsity, it's a 4-year degree, my 3rd year, one of the lecturers came and said, they're doing a play at the market. Now, I wanted to act at the market. That was it. I wanted to do one play at the market, and I wanted to be in one TV commercial. Because if you were in TV commercials back then, you were a big thing.
I can imagine.
Hey, aren't you that guy in that Omo commercial? That was a big thing. So I wanted one commercial and one play at the market. And now in 3rd year of my studying, I was going to do a play at the Market Theatre. There's a play called Sophia Town. Sophia Town then played at the Market. I played there. I was replacing an actor who couldn't do the part. And it also toured around Europe. I went to Scotland, France, Germany, lots of places with this play. So I got to see the world as well. And that's how my career started. Then when I got back from touring with the Sophia Town, in my 4th year, one of my 4th years, I did many 4th years because I studied so much. Because I was working as a professional student. I got a part in a TV series called The Game. A rugby TV series, the first ever rugby soap. The Game, that's right, yes. Early 90s. And so that became my stepping stone into television. From theatre to television. So and the rest is history. From there I just started working and did a lot of theatre. I do theatre at least once a year.
Wow. Now this time around, were you a committed believer?
I wasn't. I was just still Christian. I was still Catholic. I was still, just the nominal Christian, and I believed in all of that kind of stuff. But during my time at varsity, I met some friends. I joined the Christian Society at varsity. And there I met some people who started challenging the way we believe. It's one thing to believe in God, and then there are ways to believe in Him.
Absolutely.
You know, and they started challenging me, in fact, challenging all of us in the way that we believe God exists and Jesus, and how we can approach God, and what Jesus did for us on the cross. You know, And so for me, that was another eye-opener, to meet these people who thought another way. I went to a church that had a band in it. I kind of went, what is this? You know, it was the Vineyard Church. They were the first, I think, Pentecostal church. Rhema was going at that stage already. And Rhema was, you know, the church, but I'd never been to another church where I saw a band on stage and that kind of thing. So it was like refreshing for me to see that they didn't just have an organ or a piano. They had drums and a guitar and everything, and they sang modern style. They didn't sing hymns, which is what we grew up with, you know, in the Catholic and Anglican church. You sing from the hymnal. So that is where that hunger started for me.
Wow.
The quest to find out what this was about and this God and also the friends that I was with, the way we were praying, we were speaking personally to God, and we didn't have to go through someone or need a rosary or whatever, that kind of stuff. You know, it was a different way to worship. And then how I discovered God was I met my wife. I must tell you, when I saw my wife, the first day I saw her, I knew I was going to marry her.
Wow.
It was that kind of confirmation. Someone walks into a room and you go, that's my wife. You hope it's your wife. And you hope that the next thing you say to her is the right thing, because you can mess it up. You know? And I had to pursue her. I had to pursue my wife. But my wife fell pregnant before we were married.
Okay.
And at that time that she fell pregnant is when we both decided to serve the Lord. And then we found out we were pregnant. I went to a concert. I went to at Rhema. A guy by the name of Tim Story was preaching a message.
Yeah, I remember Tim Story.
Tim was very popular at Rhema.
Wow.
Yeah. He was preaching a message called "Your Miracle is in Motion." And I was in the overflow room. I wasn't even in the main auditorium. I was in the overflow room on the side. And Tim ministered this message, and it was like I was the only person in the whole of Rhema that he was talking to. And when they did the altar call, I stood in the overflow room. I stood up and I gave my heart to the Lord there.
Wow.
Then a guy by the name of Carmen, we all know Carmen, the gospel singer, came to Wanderers Stadium, and he did a free concert there at the Wanderers Cricket Stadium. And then he sang a song, "This Blood is for You." Now, I had collected Carmen's CDs over the years since I gave my heart to the Lord. So to go to a concert of his was great. But I'd never heard him sing "This Blood is for You." It was on one of his earlier CDs, which I didn't have. But that day he sang "This Blood is for You," and immediately did the altar call. While I ran to the front, I think I was the first person there, because he sang about how Jesus shed his blood for us, you know, how it fell on Simon's shoe and the centurion who was beating him. And he said to this guy, "This blood that you see is falling here, it's for you." And I felt again like it was directed directly at me. And then I gave my heart to the Lord there. Then, because we were pregnant and we come from a Catholic background, you know, Catholic Church is very strict about,
of course,
when you fall pregnant, you've got to get married. Then I met a pastor, Pastor Stan, who's now my pastor. He's my spiritual dad. He's like my father, really. Pastor Stan came to my house to have a prayer session, you know, the house visitations. And they came to have a house. My brother-in-law was at their church, and he brought him to come pray for us at our church. And he said, "You know what, Zane, come to our church. I can see the condemnation you guys are feeling, or what you think may be condemnation, but come to our church. Come and just be in the flock, you know, be in protection. Come to church, and there's no condemnation there. We love you guys." Well, we went to that church, our first service. We loved it. We got married in that church. We got baptized in that church. We are now in leadership. My wife and I are both in leadership in that church. We've been with the church for as long as we've been saved, almost 24 years now.
Powerful, powerful.
We are now in leadership, and out of that leadership of that pastor, Pastor Stan, was birthed my ministry, the Fatherhood Foundation of South Africa.
Wow.
And I preach a message of grace just as he did, because he says, you know, he says, God is a God of grace. God is a God of second chance. And babies are not a mistake, which is something I also minister now.
Wow.
Babies are never a mistake. There's no such thing as a mistake baby.
Wow. Well, thank you. So I just wanted to hold that thought.
Yes.
You know, because I know that some people out there would be wondering how they can give their lives over to the Lord.
Yes. Yes.
Nevertheless, I would love to continue this subject next week, because you are making some very, very cardinal points. Thank you very much, Brother Zane,
Thank you for
having you on our program today.
Really great.
Thank you very much to our viewers. Thank you for joining us, and we'll continue next week talking about the journey of Zane. God bless you till we meet next week.